Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and in this video, we're going to be going over the monetization model for Final Fantasy VII's upcoming mobile game, Ever Crisis. Now, this game was something we have known would be coming for quite some time now, but now after the 25th anniversary event, it's a little bit more in the limelight as the remake for people who wanted Final Fantasy VII to stay turn-based. That being said, it being released as a mobile game, of course, comes with concerns, especially among some of the recent releases that have come out regarding mobile games. But fortunately, Tetsuya Nomura came out to talk a little bit more about how the game is going to be structured. Now, the original article was actually present on Famitsu, but we're going to be looking at a post on Siliconera by the writer Josh Tolentino. There will be a link to the source in the description, so please, if you're watching this video, I implore you, also click the link in the description, and if you're going to share this article, please share it from the original source, so that way everyone knows we appreciate Josh for posting this. So, Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis, a mobile game that is going to be the full compilation of Final Fantasy VII all in one place. But it's a mobile game. So, how is it monetized? Where are the concerns? Let's go over all of that. So, first of all, the game is going to have a ton of different story chapters. We know it's going to be covering not just the base game for Final Fantasy VII, but all the various media that Final Fantasy VII originally covered. That includes Before Crisis, a game that I've never had the privilege of playing, and I'm looking forward to finally not just reading a synopsis for it online. It is going to have Dirge of Cerberus. It's going to have Advent Children. It's going to have Crisis Core. It's even going to have some exclusive chapters involving their other mobile game, First Soldier, the Battle Royale. And it's going to be all turn-based and probably pretty good. I'm really excited for this release to have all of these things in one place. So, as it says here, a comprehensive bite-sized exploration of the expansive world of Final Fantasy VII and its growing backstory, and players will be able to do that for free, according to Famitsu interview with director Tetsuya Nomura. Now, the big thing here is that all of these story chapters will be free. If you play other Final Fantasy mobile games, this probably isn't that much of a surprise for you, but every mobile game release is just a giant question mark. We're all thinking, all right, how are they going to try to get the money out of my pocket? And this game will not be doing that with the story-related content. Now, as we get into more details here, I do have some comparisons to draw to some of their other existing mobile games, especially one in particular that I'm a big fan of that has a great monetization model, or at least a very fair one, I should say, and also does free story chapters and releases like that. So Famitsu raised the question of just how Ever Crisis would be monetized. Thank you, Famitsu, for doing that. The initial announcement made it clear it was a single-player title driven by its story, unclear how it would make Square Enix money. Always the big question. Nomura answered that the story chapters themselves would be free to access, as would the core gameplay. However, the game will feature gacha elements specifically for acquiring weapons and possibly costumes. The special weapons will come with interesting gimmicks that weren't present in the original games. There will also be new and original costumes. Now, there's one Final Fantasy mobile game above the rest that comes to mind when I read that section, and that would be Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia, my go-to Square Enix mobile choice of mobile game. That was a lot of words to string together. Basically, the game has all the story chapters for free. You unlock the characters by playing through special events or through the story, and the only real thing that you're spending money on is the gacha for weapons. You can also purchase packs that usually have a combination of a premium currency that you would then use on the gacha, and costumes or maybe other resources as well. Very much a game that tries to give you all the opportunities to earn the items yourself by earning gems from playing through the story or the special events or free tickets and whatnot. And the weapons, they'll unlock new skills, they'll unlock new passives for your characters. And as you acquire those, you'll probably remake your team or rethink your strategies for different things. This seems to be going very much the same route. We've already seen some of the costumes in the trailer, and if they're going to be specifically focusing on a weapon-based gacha, that's probably the direction they're going to go. It says the special weapons will come with interesting gimmicks, and that pretty much reads exactly like Dissidia Opera Omnia. So, I'm glad to see that they seem to be going the route of what I think is the fairest monetized mobile game that Square Enix currently has. Now, that being said, that isn't all the details that we got here. Even for players only interested in the story, the chapters for Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis will be considerable in size. The original Final Fantasy VII is expected to take up 10 chapters, with the escape from Midgar being at the end of Chapter 3. The game won't be a lockstep recreation of Final Fantasy VII and its spin-offs, though, as evidenced by screenshots of things like having Aerith in the party during the first boss battle against the Guard Scorpion. The battle system will allow players to mix things up and take on new challenges unbound by the narrative. Basically, don't be too surprised if maybe Genesis joins your party. Let's be honest, same person. If Genesis joins your party and then you take him back into an earlier chapter or some special event that doesn't make sense for him to be there. Don't be too stressed on who's in your party or which characters you have available. Focus more on what you enjoy playing or the strategy that you're going to be using. Again, very similar to Dissidia Opera Omnia. Anyway, the story itself will also feature new content as well as original chapters focusing on things like the backstory of Final Fantasy VII The First Soldier, we mentioned that earlier, or the younger days of characters who appear in other Final Fantasy VII games. That, I'm sure, has people a little more concerned. A lot of people were wondering if they were going to try to slip any new background or story into Ever Crisis that would make understanding the compilation almost feel not full. You know, Kingdom Hearts does that with their mobile games where a big portion of their story is locked in. Now, I will say, I wouldn't be the biggest fan of that. We've seen what the multimedia compilation has done to making understanding some certain stories that Square Enix has produced in recent years a little bit more complex than it needs to be. That being said, if it's just focusing on backstory and it only makes little things a bit more wholesome, I suppose, that I don't really mind too much, especially if I'm already going to be playing it. You know, it's not like I'm going to miss these things most likely. But speaking to the general public and how people perceive mobile games, a lot of people don't want to play mobile games to fully understand a story or a character. So that's a little questionable, but I'll leave that up to you. Please comment on it in the comment section of the video below. Now, Nomura clarified that one of the reasons Ever Crisis creation is to establish common ground amongst the titles of the compilation of Final Fantasy VII. They vary widely in terms of technology, style, and mechanics, so this will be a way for fans new and old to experience their uniqueness in a unified way. And that's actually what got me excited about Ever Crisis in the first place. You know, I like mobile games, but I generally don't get too crazy excited over them. But being able to play through all of those various stories, some are movies, some are really old games that are nearly impossible to get a hold of anymore, having them all in that kind of one way, and it's that classic turn-based style with a mix of the HD graphics that you see of that look like the PlayStation 1 graphics, but really kind of just freshened up, but also those remake graphics when we're in combat, drawing a great parallel to the way the original Final Fantasy VII actually displayed its characters. It's something that's great to have just across the entire franchise. The game won't be a replacement for the originals. Mention receiving requests to remake or make the older games playable on current platforms, though he didn't confirm if he'd be acting on those requests, probably referring to Before Crisis, Dirge of Cerberus, of course, Crisis Core we already know is on the way, and there are other ones out there that I'm sure many of you are aware of. Either way, in my opinion, good news for Ever Crisis. Really looking forward to the closed beta test that's going to be coming and the eventual release later this year. So keep an eye out for the content regarding Ever Crisis on the channel, especially if you're someone who doesn't normally follow mobile games. I'll keep you in the loop on whether or not it should be something that is actually on your radar. Right now, gets a thumbs up from me. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comment section of the video below. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you when we got more to talk about. Until then, you have a good one. Take care.